Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Morty and Glory video. Today we are going to be taking a look at another fun command squad combo. This time it's the One Punch Squad. Now in the last episode where we analysed cool crunchy ways of making your command squads really effective, we had a look at the Dreadnought tactic, which is a way of making a command squad ultra drawable, maybe even nigh on unkillable. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the other end of the spectrum, how you can make a command squad very, very fighty and use it to be a close combat melee powerhouse. Now, don't worry if you missed the Dreadnought episode. I will link that video at the end of this one. But in today's episode, we're going to go through what you need to put the One Punch Squad together, how it works, and why you do it, and what certain advantages it has over other combat options in the Imperial Guard, and basically what is the end result and its battlefield use. But without further ado, let's dive straight into today's episode. So the first thing you're going to need to make this work is a Cadian command squad. And like last time, I'm specifically saying you need a Cadian command squad for a good reason, because it's going to give you access to some pretty helpful stratagems and relics that really are going to power this unit up. Now, the next thing you're going to need is to equip your officer in the squad with a power fist, and also one of the veterans in the squad with a power fist as well. You may not know this, but in the new guard book, you can actually equip one veteran in a Cadian command squad with a power fist or power sword. Now, normally you wouldn't want to go for the power fist because it has an inbuilt -1 to hit, and suddenly that veteran would be hitting on 5s. But don't worry, we're going to be looking at ways of how you can get around that. Now, I will mention briefly that you could give your officer and your veteran power swords rather than power fists. This is a good budget option if you're finding yourself running a little bit short of points, and it should still allow the squad to do what it needs to do, which is Barney in close combat. But I would recommend that if you've got the points, that you go for those power fists, because they are going to do more damage, and like I said, you're not going to need to worry about them not hitting very well. Now, for the remaining 3 veterans, you can really kind of equip them with what you want, although I would recommend you go with the standard command squad loadout, which is you take a flag, you take a medic, and you take a Master Vox. The reason you want to take all those is so that it allows the command squad to also be a supporting buffing unit and not just be a close combat powerhouse. There may be those games where getting into close combat really isn't an option, or the opportunity doesn't really present itself, and you're still going to want this command squad to be able to contribute. Having the medic in there makes the squad still very durable, makes it more of an objective holding unit. Having the banner in there allows it to buff up other squads near it with those reroll 1s to wound, and of course having a Master Vox lets you play your secondary game very effectively. So I would still recommend taking those 3 options for your command squad. Now, once you've got all the base models of the command squad sorted out, you are going to need the man, the myth, the legend himself, Gnorc Dead Dog. Now, the reason that we're going to add Gnorc into the squad is it provides a significant close combat damage boost to the unit. Gnorc comes with 6 attacks base. With his Ooze Knife, that actually goes up to 7 attacks. They're going to be hitting at Strength 8, they're going to be AP -2, and they're going to be just 1 damage each. So he does have a lot of combat potential. Now, I know some people are going to be asking, Morty and Glory, do I need to use Gnorc Dead Dog for this, or can I use a standard Ogre Bodyguard? And you can absolutely use a standard bodyguard if you want to. It basically comes down to player choice and what kind of damage you want to do. Gnorc is going to have more attacks at a higher strength, at a higher AP, but they are only going to be damage 1, whereas an Ogre Bodyguard with a Bulgrim Maul is going to have less attacks at less strength, but they are going to be damage 2 each time. So it basically comes down to what kind of enemies do you think you're going to face. If you're not sure and you want something that's a little bit take all comers, I'd probably go for Gnorc. If you know you're going to be facing a lot of 2-wound or multi-wound enemy models that don't have any way of reducing the damage, then going down the standard Ogre Bodyguard route might actually be better. The one thing I would say that really leans me towards Gnorc is the fact that he does have this ability to do mortal wounds on top, thanks to Thunderous Headbutt. Now, once you've got all the models together for this command squad, you are going to need a relic and a warlord trait to help power up even more. And you're going to need the relic of Lost Cadia, and you're also going to want the warlord trait, lead by example. And the last thing that you're going to need to complete this combination, the final piece of the puzzle, is going to be a regimental preacher. So now that you've brought all of these disparate elements together, how can you combine them all into the ultimate One Punch Squad, a Fighty command squad? Well, the first thing you need to take a look at is the Preacher. He has an ability called Righteous Rhetoric, and in the command phase, he can select one friendly Astra Militarum core or Astra Militarum infantry character unit and give them one of the following buffs. Now, he can either give them a 6+ invulnerable save, which you don't really need, but the one that you do want to take a look at is he can give them, until the start of the next command phase, you add 1 to charge rolls made for that unit, and each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, you can re-roll the hit. Having 4 rerolls to hit on a combat unit, especially one that's loaded up with things like Power Fists, is really, really nice because it means you're much more likely to get those hits through. The +1 charge is just a cherry on top, but it's important to remember that you could start combining that with things like Swift as the Wind, and you'd have a command squad with +2 to charge inbuilt, as long as the Preacher gets his Righteous Rhetoric ability off. But once you've got those 4 rerolls on the squad, it's now time to take a look at that Lost Relic of Cadia. Now, the Lost Relic of Cadia can only be used once per battle, but when it is popped off, when someone gets out the relic and gives it a nice shine and shows it to the men, it gives all Cadian units within 6 inches of the bearer, including the bearer, +1 attack, +1 weapon skill, +1 ballistic skill, and +1 leadership. Now, +1 weapon skill and +1 attack is massive for this unit. +1 attack means that you're going to be getting 7 Power Fist attacks out of this squad. You're going to be getting 4 from the officer, and you're going to be getting 3 from the veteran. It also means that Nork is going to be going up to 8 attacks because he is part of the Cadian unit. He benefits from the buff from the Cadian Lost Relic. Now, from Nork's perspective, that's really good because it means it's more opportunities for his Thunderous Headbutt ability to trigger. If you're lucky, Nork could be doing 2 or 3 mortal wounds every time he fights, in addition to all of the big stabs he's going to be doing with that huge knife. The +1 weapon skill is actually a really nice ability as well. Nork doesn't really benefit from it because he's already weapon skill 2, but if you somehow come across an enemy that's got inbuilt -1 to hit, it's very nice. It means he's going to be hitting on 2s no matter what. But the extra weapon skill is very nice on the officer and veteran, who would be suffering a -1 to hit with those Power Fists, but thanks to the extra weapon skill, they're now not going to be suffering from that -1 to hit, and they're going to be able to hit at their normal rate with full rerolls. The +1 ballistic skill might not seem like such a big deal at first, but you've got to remember that Nork does have a Ripper gun, and his base ballistic skill is 3+, which means he'd be hitting on a 2+ with that Ripper gun. It just means that before you charge in, you can let rip with Nork's gun, try and soften the enemy up, and then finish them off with a charge. It just is another reason why I prefer taking Nork over a standard Ogren Bodyguard, because it's more damage that this guy can do in the overall combat situation. But the buffs just keep on coming, because the reason why we gave the officer the lead by example Warlord trait is it means that he can order his own unit when he normally couldn't do so. That means you can order your own unit to fix bayonets. Now, Nork doesn't really care about the +1 to hit, but he certainly does care about the +1 AP. Getting that Ooge knife up to an eye-watering AP -3 is very, very nice. It means that the majority of the time when you're targeting enemy infantry, either they're going to be on a 5 or a 6+ save, unless they've got some kind of invulnerable. But the +1 to hit is really, really nice on the officer and veteran, because it now means that the officer is able to hit on 2s with that Power Fist. It now means that the veteran is able to hit on 3s with his Power Fist. That's 7 Power Fist attacks with a really reliable hit rate, especially when you take into account the Preacher is giving you full rerolls to hit. Now, I know some people are going to be saying, but Mordy and Glory, I didn't think you could get +2 to hit. To hit modifiers are kind of wacky in 9th edition. How it works is you can't get a total of more than +1 to hit. Basically, no matter how many modifiers you stack onto a unit, the end result can never be more than -1 to hit or more than +1 to hit. But you can stack on additional modifiers to try and cancel out negative modifiers. So what we've done here with this unit is we've gone, right, we've got a -1 to hit from the Power Fist, and we've cancelled that out with the Relic of Lost Cadia. So overall, our modifier to hit is nothing. But then we're giving ourselves another +1 to hit. thanks to fixed bayonets. Now, we've not gone over the total of +1 to hit modifier. We've just used one of our to hit modifiers to cancel out the negative, and we've used another one of our to hit modifiers to actually give us the positive. The fact that we're getting AP -4 on these power fists is just a Brucey bonus. That means that anyone that you go into combat with better have an invulnerable save, or they are going to be having a bad time. So once you stack this all up, you're going to end up with 4 attacks hitting on 2s at strength 6, AP -4, 2 damage. You're going to end up with another 3 attacks at strength 6, AP -4, 2 damage. You're going to end up with 8 attacks hitting on 2s at strength 8, AP -3, 1 damage, and thanks to Nork's Thunder's Headbutt, you statistically should get at least 1 mortal wound on top of this every single time. If you're lucky, you might get 2. It's important to note that you're also going to have those 3 other veterans who will be contributing 6 other attacks. Now, they're going to be hitting on 3s, and they are only going to be strength 3, and they are only going to be AP -1, but against certain enemies, that is still going to add a couple of extra wounds to the damage output. For a guard combat unit, that is very, very tasty. I would confidently send that into almost any enemy squad and reckon that I'd come out better on the other side once all the fisticuffs had stopped. The best bit is that there are other ways you can stack more buffs onto this unit as well. We've not even talked about regimental doctrines. I've been approaching this from the fact that you're probably going to take born soldiers with your army because it is a pretty good buff for most guard commanders. But if you really want to go all in on that combat guard, and this is going to be part of that strategy, you could take Swift as the Wind. So this unit's going to have an inbuilt +2 to charge, and you could take Brutal Strength, which means everyone's going to get +1 strength in the combat. That means you've got strength 7 power fists. It means that Nork is going to be strength 9. It means that those extra little veterans are going to be strength 4, which makes their attacks much more effective. So overall, there's a lot more you can do to really power this up just by looking at regimental doctrines. Another thing that I really like about this tactic is that it's not mutually exclusive with the Dreadnought. You could actually combine these two into making a huge mega bunker busting command squad. All you need to do is take Acadian Castellan in your army, which you're probably going to be doing anyway because they're a really good HQ choice, and you just have him near this command squad and give him the Relic of Lost Cadia. And that means that you are able to put the Death Mask of Adolius Pius back into the command squad, so they've got all of the buffs there, and then the Acadian Castellan just pops the Relic of Lost Cadia, and this squad goes in and starts doing its thing. You've literally just got to swap the relics around a little bit. You could also just take the Primaris Psyker as well, and then you can give them Night Shroud. So it's just a couple more characters, and you're able to have not only a Dreadnought, but you're also able to have a one-punch squad combined into one big Death Star unit. Now, the reason you might not want to do that is it is going to start getting pretty expensive. If you start adding in an extra 2 support characters, this combination is going to start coming up to about 300 points, because you're looking at about 185 for the Command Squad Nork and the Preacher, and then you're looking at about another 110 for the Castellan and the Primaris Psyker. So in total, you're looking at about a 300 point combination. It's not that expensive for a unit that can pretty much take anything in the game and dish it out at the same time, but from a guard point of view, it is kind of expensive. It's unnatural to spend that much on a single unit, but you could absolutely do it, and it would probably be pretty effective on the battlefield. You just have to be very aggressive with it and make sure you're getting your money's worth. Don't be tiptoeing around with it. Get it stuck in, get it fine, get it doing damage to the enemy, get it absorbing damage from the enemy as well, and then you're actually getting your money's worth. Now, let's assume for a moment that you don't go for the full bunker buster. You don't combine the two and you just stick with the one-punch squad. That's going to cost you about 200 points. A big question that people are going to say is, well, why wouldn't you just take Rough Riders? 10 Rough Riders is probably going to do way more damage than the one-punch squad. Why wouldn't you just do that, Mordy and Glory? Now, I'm not saying that Rough Riders are a bad unit. They're not. Rough Riders are an absolutely fantastic unit, and you would not be wrong in taking a big 10-man squad of them or taking 2 5-man squads of them. The thing is, though, the Rough Riders do have an Achilles heel, which is that they are cavalry, and also they're pretty fragile. Now, the reason why cavalry is a problem is that on the terrain-heavy boards of 9th edition competitive 40k, that is going to make them getting those charges off a little bit tricky. It means that when your opponent is hiding behind a big L-shaped ruin, you've got to go around it because you can't breach through it. It means that when you're trying to navigate down the board, you're going to be forced down certain movement channels, just like vehicles. So whilst Rough Riders are incredibly powerful on the punch, a savvy opponent can use terrain against them. You can't do that against the one punch squad. It's infantry. It's going to breach through the walls. Nork is going to headbutt through the walls and clear the way for the rest of his fellows. So the fact that it's infantry gives it a great boost in maneuverability. It might not be as directly fast as a Rough Rider squad, but it can go as the crow flies in a straight line, whereas a Rough Rider squad has got to start going round stuff. The other thing is I mentioned is that they are pretty fragile. Toughness 4, 2 wounds, and a 4 per save isn't going to get you very far in 40k these days, which means that if you do get caught out in the open, your opponent will have no problem just picking those Rough Riders up. The one punch squad doesn't have that problem. Because it's a character, it can't be targeted as long as there's some screening infantry in front of it. And this is the guard, son. You're going to have screening infantry. And it's because of these advantages, and it's when you start looking beyond just pure damage output, that is why I think this tactic, the one punch squad, is as equally as powerful and equally as good as taking a squad of Rough Riders. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Would you take the one punch squad? Would you take a Dreadnought? Would you take the Mega Bunker Buster and combine them both together? Let me know down in that comment section. Now, before we get to the end of the video, I have to make an admission here, guys. Say it wasn't actually me that came up with this tactic. I want to say a massive thank you to Mordy and Glory supporter Mobius1105, because it was during a recent live stream that he actually put me onto this one punch squad. I enjoyed the tactic so much once I'd figured out all the nuance of it that I was like, I've got to make a video of it. So Mobius, thank you so much for the video idea. Thank you for all your support, man, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. As always, guys, don't forget to smash that like button and make sure you subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. If you really enjoyed today's video and you want to go the extra mile when it comes to supporting the channel, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. It's thanks to the generous support of channel members and Patreons that I'm able to do this gig full time. One of the big bonuses you get for being a channel member is you gain access to the Mordy and Glory Discord, which is an online community of over 700 active members. There's always someone to talk to and chat to in there. So if that sounds like a whole load of fun, then make sure you become a channel member or Patreon supporter and get yourself in that Discord. And I just want to take a moment to say a thank you to the latest channel members. So a huge thank you to Pyrostorm, Robert Lowe, Machello, David Simpson, Lord Biscuit, James Harrison, Sun Gohan, 101 Sugar High, Kristen August, Peter Packard, Brian, David Irving, Mobius1105, Compy Guy, Infernia Gaming, Best Ubu, Orange Girls, Dylan Smith, and Mike Zisby. Thank you guys for becoming channel members. Thank you for doing your part. I also want to do a shout out to the latest Patreon supporters as well. So a big thank you to Old Bean UK, Nicholas, Rob, Sam, Brett, Chansey, Benjamin, Justin, Devin, and Canadian Goose. Thank you guys for your ongoing Patreon support. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal, heartfelt thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These guys are the War Masters, the people that have truly gone above and beyond the Call of Duty. So a massive thank you to Bonbon Vert, Phil French, Ross Miller, Tekwal, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Swordfish Trombone, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and of course, August Varney. Thank you guys for watching today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. And of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.